я видел свет.
What's going on, guys? Malcolm out back with another video, and today we were on book, I think it's, was it 13? Yeah, it's book 13. So we're a little behind, but we'll catch up. But today we're going to be reading, or we read Lesson Zero by Brett Elias. So if you don't know who he is, he wrote probably one of the most famous novels and movies, American Psycho. So he's read a lot. Was a writer of that, and if you don't know, Lesson Zero is actually a movie adaptation as well. It was written by, or not written by, but Robert Downey Jr. It was one of his earliest films before he went to rehab. So, fun fact, yeah, Robert Downey Jr. was in there. So, Lesson Zero is Brett Elias's one of his first novels. He wrote this when he was about 21 years old, so it's pretty of a big accomplishment, pretty of a respectable accomplishment for someone to only be 21 years old and to have such in-depth knowledge of consumerism, nihilism, things of that in nature, materialism, hedonism. And so the book kind of explores all those things. And it was written by him, 21 years old, his debut novel. I think like 2 years later it was a movie. So kind of crazy when you think about it, that he was just in college and then 2 years later he like drops this novel, and then 2 years later it's a movie. So I'm not really gonna, how should I say, spoil the book, but this is the Lesson Zero is actually it's a record by I think like Elvis or someone, but the title, well, it comes from the person or the main character Clay in the book, and essentially the plot, without spoiling anything, is that the plot is just a bunch of college kids that just got back home off after Christmas break, and they go and they're just meeting up with each other, and they're in LA, and they are essentially, you just kind of just see them do what they do. The book doesn't really have any like central narrative. I think American Psycho had more of a central narrative. Like, it wasn't like it was buildings. Like, it wasn't like a traditional narrative. Like, it wasn't like if you're reading like Dune or something, where it's like, okay, boom, boom. But it wasn't that. It's just more so kind of like scenes, and then like from these scenes, you kind of just see things play out. But I think American Psycho was developing into something. It obviously was developing into something. This book really doesn't develop into anything. When you read the book, I think I was reading the beginning of the book, it was pretty cool, and then like by the time I got to the middle of the book, I was like, what is this book really about? I was like reading it, and I'm like, okay, I'm not like halfway through, and usually I have an understanding of like what's going on. There's not really any central plot lines except for like one that comes up, but more or less it's just, I think the beauty in of it is that it really just kind of depicts like what a college spring break would be, in the sense that it's just kind of random. Like, it's not really like, you know, imagine you come home from spring break, or not spring break, but like any type of break. It's not like you're gonna be like doing this and doing that, and it's just like, boom, this is something that happened, and this is something that happened, and this is something that happened. So I think that he's actually a great writer for being able to encapsulate that, because it's actually more realistic. Because in real life, you're not gonna have like, not most people on average don't have something like, unless you're like going for a specific goal. When you're just living your life, you're not really, it's just little moments, and that's pretty much what it is. So I think that was really neat when I was reading it, that I was like, okay, this is really like that. But pretty much the book, it's pretty like gross, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of like, towards the end it gets really gross, and there's some very like gross scenes. Is it as gross as like American Psycho? If you've read American Psycho, I would say no, it's not that. Like, it depends. American Psycho is a lot more detailed in the grotesque nature. Like, I don't want to spoil the book, but some of the scenes, the gore or the things that are going on in there, they're more detailed, so you get more of a detailed picture. This book, everyone is so desensitized and almost dehumanized, and they're so detached from reality, because they're just doing a bunch of drugs pretty much. that the things that are happening when you're reading the book, I think the great thing is that when you're reading the book, the way that he wrote it is that you're going to almost kind of feel that, where it's going to be like, oh, this just happened. Like, this really gross thing happened. This really nasty thing just happened. But we're just going to, I don't really like that. But we're just going to move on to something else. She relates that. But, yeah, reading it, you could just read this and just kind of, like, go through and be like, it doesn't mean anything. But, because the book really is kind of like all the characters, they're not really meaning anything. There's no meaning to them. They all kind of understand that they have no meaning to them. The main character is Clay. It's written in first person, so it really feels like you are Clay. It's not like American Psycho, which is like a monologue. So like you're kind of like in the mind of Patrick Bateman, but there's a separation between you and Patrick Bateman. Clay, there really isn't no separation. You kind of feel like you're just kind of, you are Clay, because the way that he monologues like a person that's like kind of seeing his day, and then he's like, oh, this is what's happening, and then I'm doing this, almost like a journal in some ways. But a lot of it's first person, so a lot of it, Clay's just kind of there, so it feels like you're kind of there. But yeah, it's very nihilistic. The world's very nihilistic. The people really don't have any hope. They just keep consuming, and it just seems like they have no direction of where they're going. So I think that it's a really good book to kind of explore how consumerism and materialism, which Brett really kind of puts in his novels, can just lead to, the abyss, nothingness, meaninglessness in the world. And it's a really good take on the really rich elite. I would say the upper middle class, not so much the rich elite, like the super rich elite, but like the suburban upper class rich people. So I think it's really a big take on that, and then kind of a take on like kids being unsupervised in like your early, adolescence, college age, which is kind of like kind of gives some good input. They're just kind of there doing what you're doing, and so the lifestyle can kind of just be just about like partying and things like that, like how hedonism can kind of just lead to just nothingness. So I really explores that. So I think it was a good read. I'll give it like a 4 out of 10. It was surprisingly better. I thought this was going to be a 3 out of 10. I was reading it and I was like, I'm reading this, but this book is really boring. But then I was like, this is good writing, because this is what the book is about. And then, I started to see the kind of how the characters were and how they just really were just void of anything, and there wasn't any moral compass. It was just, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to do it. And, them just constantly being on drugs because they're just afraid and they don't know how to talk to anyone, and they're just closed off. So probably going to watch the movie. And yeah, I would definitely recommend this book, especially if you're a Brett Elliott fan. I was always meaning to read some of his other books after I read American Psycho and watched the movie. I'm a big fan of American Psycho. The movie's just kind of something that, like I said, it just captures that elite or that yuppie lifestyle and just materialism, consumerism, and just when you have all the money in the world, like what it can lead you to if you just have no spiritual self. I think that's really good to kind of explore that and kind of see that. And I think he's a good writer in that sense, and that kind of how he kind of creates a space for the reader. And I read this book and was really feeling everything in that book, just the void and just nothingness and the death. So it was the desensitization, the dehumanization, all those things. So it was a pretty good book. We do have to read very rapid firely, so hopefully I'll be in a trip this week, so hopefully I can read, like, my plan is to read at least like 2 books. I'll probably read like 1 book at least in the car going there, and then read another book coming back. So we're supposed to be on book 16, so I've read 13 books, so I need to read at least like 3 books this week, and I'll be caught up, because I actually miscounted. I read this book pretty fast, but I would have read it faster if I would have understood this. And also too, I've been also reading another book, because I've been flipping around, but I've been reading Being in Nothingness. I've been reading this book, so I've been reading this for a little bit, so I read this also as well, and I've also been reading Think and Grow Rich. So eventually we're gonna be caught up and be where we're supposed to be. But yeah, I'm probably gonna read a couple more books that I have on this shelf that I bought along with this book. So I'll probably read go back to Nietzsche. I'll finish this, and then I'll probably go and I'll read. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for a while. It's Confessions by Saint Augustus, or Augustine, not Augustus. It's the Roman emperor, but Saint Augustine. So I'm probably gonna read those two books within this week, and yeah, it'll be pretty good. This challenge has been pretty good. Hopefully, if you guys are like following along, if you're reading the same books that I'm reading, if you're reading different books, hopefully you guys are still trekking through and continuing with the challenge, because I think it's really good. We're on book 13, so soon, by the end of this month, we'll probably be coming close to book 20, which is, it's pretty satisfying to kind of look back and see all the books that I've read this month or this year. And then if you continue doing that, like last year I did this, I've done this before, but it's really like when you do a challenge like this and when you really just kind of commit yourself to reading every single week, yeah, it's pretty satisfying to look back at your shelf and kind of look at that, and then kind of seeing how once you start to read 13 books, then it's like, oh dang, I have like maybe 50 books on my bookshelf right here, or a little less than that, maybe like 40 or 30 or about that. But then I start to look at that and I'm like, that's just like, if I can read one of these a week, then 4 of these are done in a month, 8 of these are done in 2 months. If I read even faster, then I can get done with a lot more books really, even more. So it kind of changes the perspective, because reading can be something that's very daunting, but when there's no limit to what you can read, I think that's very liberating. So I'm really liking this challenge. I'm liking reading. I've been writing a lot too, as well. This has really spawned this, because a lot of the philosophy books that I've been reading and some of the other books that I've read has made me have to write a lot. So I think writing's also pretty good as well. I might do a video on this app that I've been using for writing, potentially, but we'll see. But yeah, that's the book. Brett Elias, Lesson Zero. Oh yeah, the last thing I want to say is that the book really, I think like the thing that really brings the book together is that it's called Less Than Zero, and you see that every single character, or all the characters are really, if you think about their state of being, they're less than zero. And so I think I really liked that when I was reading the book. But yeah, I'll see you guys later this week, and I'll be in Chicago when I see you guys, so it'll be pretty well. So yeah, continue to read, continue to think critically, continue to think deeply, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Malcolm Moss signing off. Goodbye.